Today I'm going to talk to you about the key drivers behind investing in student property. There is a number of drivers behind the sector and this is why it's seen such growth over the last few years. And investment from funds, institutional investors and retail investment has been over 2.7 billion in 2012 alone. The investment case behind student property is very simple for investors to grasp. It's very similar to buy-to-let property, so it's something that investors and their advisors are probably quite familiar with, but obviously student property is a relatively new sector and there are a few differences in that sense. Purpose-built student property can provide a number of advantages to retail investors. This includes diversification of income, fixed stable returns on an annual basis, and also a hedge against inflation, as it's a real asset that should grow year on year. So what are the key drivers behind this ever increasing and growing sector? Today we're going to cover the 5 key factors that we believe have led to the growth of this sector in recent years. The 5 key reasons we believe have led to the growth of this sector in recent years are growth in the number of international students studying in the UK, diversification in portfolios and investment portfolios, fixed term rental contracts, fixed annual returns, and also the availability of resources in order to build new properties. That includes construction, planning and available land. International students demand accommodation that gives them security. It means that they can mingle with other international students, and they also want it located close to local amenities, the town centre and also the university campus. And for these points they're quite happy to pay a premium, and often higher than local or UK students will pay for the accommodation. International students account for a larger and growing proportion of students studying in the UK, and since 2008 the numbers have increased by 27%. International students have a demand for purpose-built student accommodation. International student demand has been one of the key drivers, if not the key driver, behind the growth in the purpose-built student property market in recent years. Moving forward, it's extremely important that the number of international students studying in the UK continues to increase, and this is very important for the market moving forward. The second key driver behind growth in the sector is fixed-term rental contracts. When students start university, they will often enter into a 42 to 48 week rental contract for the accommodation. This is extremely important as it means that management companies and investors know that for the next 42 to 48 weeks they will have a tenant in that property. This also provides security of income, and it means that for the few weeks that the property isn't let out, they can do any essential maintenance work or rent the property out to summer lets for students that may be studying just in the summer months. Students will generally pay their rent monthly, quarterly or termly in advance. This is important for investors and for the management company, as it keeps debtor days to a minimum, and it also allows them to know that the rent is in the bank and the student isn't going to run off without paying. The third key driver behind the sector is strong returns performance. Over the last few years, returns have outstripped traditional buy-to-let property and commercial property, and average returns throughout the UK have been between 5.5 and 7.5% per year. Central London, despite having some of the highest rental prices, actually has some of the lowest net yields on rental income for student property. This is mainly due to the initial purchase costs of the property and land in London, and also the high ongoing management costs. Over the last few years, returns have been approximately 5.5% return on investment in the capital. Other parts of the UK, most importantly Yorkshire, and cities around there such as Leeds and Manchester, have had much higher net yields. This is due to reasonably strong demand for student property and also very, very low house prices. Returns in these sort of cities have been around 6.5% per year. Moving forward, Knight Frank have predicted returns from capital growth and income to be approximately 9% for the next year from April 2013. And this shows the continued strength and growth in the sector, and this is one of the reasons why people are attracted to investing in student property. The fourth main reason behind the growth in student property is diversification. Property has traditionally been used as a diversifier in investment portfolios. This is due to it being a physical asset and an income generating asset that can provide returns to investors on an annual basis. In this sense, student property is no different. It's a physical asset that should have capital growth and can provide ongoing, consistent returns to investors. Therefore, as part of a well-diversified portfolio, student property can have a role to play, although for many investors, they should ensure that their basic needs are accounted for first. This is one of the reasons why funds, institutional investors, and other large investors have put a lot of money into the student property market in recent years. It should be noted that student property, along with traditional property investments, is a risky asset and it can be very illiquid. This means that it can take a long time for investors to sell the asset. It should also be noted that prices can rise as well as fall, and therefore it may not be suitable for all investors. Finally, the fifth main reason behind the growth in the student property market is there's a large availability of land, labour and construction resources. Since the 2008 financial crisis and the consequent fall in house prices throughout the UK, there's been a large number of commercial and residential properties left unfinished and construction companies left with excess capacity. A further consequence from the financial crisis is that bank financing is much harder to come by. This has meant that construction companies have looked to retail investors and pension funds in order to fill the void left by traditional bank financing. The availability of commercial and residential property left construction companies with the opportunity to convert these into purpose-built student property blocks. This meant that they could change them into halls of residence that could be let out to first and second year students and sold off to retail investors as single student pods. This was a new opportunity and has led to a number of these investments being marketed to retail investors. Liverpool can be seen as a prime example of a city where this has happened, as there has been over 21 new student property investments launched in the city since 2011. In conclusion, there are a number of compelling reasons for investing in student property. For many investors, it can form part of a well-diversified investment portfolio, but you should also be aware of the risks involved with this, and therefore investors should look at their conventional financial planning needs before diversifying into purpose-built student property. Investors should also be aware of the risks involved with student property investment. This includes the fact that prices can fall as well as rise, and also it can be a very illiquid asset and take a long time to sell. Therefore, it may not be suitable for all investors. We've only covered 5 of the key reasons behind the growth in this sector today, but for more information, please download a copy of the Intelligent Partnership Purpose-Built Student Property Report. Thank you for listening.